Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Paris-based bassist and composer Apostolos Sideris. He was born in Greece, and after having spent considerable time in New York City and Istanbul, he recently moved to Paris. His latest album, Past Presented on Parallel Records, gave him the opportunity to expand on his fusing between modern jazz and the sounds of the Eastern Mediterranean. It features a very special group of musicians. We get into all of this, his life and music, surviving COVID, the future, and so much more. Enjoy. Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for reaching out to the show. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for your interest in our music.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've loved it. And, before we get into Past Presented, I want to know, we went through quite a thing with COVID for the last 3.5 years, and it really affected the jazz community quite heavily. How did you get through that time period? And how good does it feel to have new material out now?
It's true. It was a really hard period for everybody in the music industry, I guess, and for everybody. I mean, luckily I had students online that I was teaching, and I managed also to release an online album during that time, which was a good thing for my soul, to know that I'm keep going and keep writing music. So there were for sure aspects of it that were creative, but it was a really, really tough period. We couldn't perform. It really was a hard period, and not to be able to play with others. And in jazz, that's such a big part of this music, interaction.
So talk to me a little bit about the artistic forces that went into this new album.
For this new album, basically, I called my main group, it's a piano trio with the addition of percussion, and we have violin and the Turkish ney, which is like a Turkish wooden flute, playing most of the melodies. So it was this kind of combination that I wanted to work on. And they're all musicians I've been working for years with. We have Leo Genovese on the piano. We are friends from back in our Berkeley days, in Boston. We have a great drummer, Dimitris Klonis, who is based in Athens, Greece, I've also played in a number of different projects with. And then we have Yannis Poulios, who is an excellent traditional violin player, Andrea Romani, who plays the ney flute, and Shakiros Anouigan, who is a percussionist from Turkey, with whom I've been also working on my previous projects as well as with other groups. And we've had a couple of guests also. We had Rula Tsernou, the vocalist, who joined us, and we had Taxiarchis Georgoulis on the oud, and Tassos Poulios on the kanoun. It's like sort of a table harp, I call it.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
What I want is for the listener to get really the energy that we had playing together, the freshness of this music, because we didn't really have much time to play the music before recording it. So actually, this is something that I really like, like a lot of these old jazz records, the way we hear them. It was musicians came together. Somebody said, listen, I have this new chart. What can we do with it? And melodically, I want for people to see that we can keep the energy of jazz and the attitude of modern jazz. But melodically, we can infuse a bunch of other things into this music. In my case, I'm infusing elements from Greek music, from Mediterranean music, and find a way to present them in a very jazzy way, with interaction, with syncopation. So it's kind of like an alchemy that we did for this project.
So speaking of an alchemy, talk to me about your beginnings in music and more specifically jazz. How did this happen? Who were early influences?
Basically, I started on another instrument. I started playing the classical flute when I was maybe around 11 years old. And I have an older brother who started playing guitar and started listening somehow to jazz big band music. So I can say that the first jazz I ever heard was Count Basie, Gene Krupa, all these great big bands, from the 30s and the 40s. And from then on, because my mother, she's a visual artist, and she had some friends from the States that were sending me tapes. And I remember specifically it was Charlie Parker, a lot of blues music also, some Muddy Waters and some classic blues things. But I really remember those Charlie Parker tapes. So I can say it was big band and bebop that I started listening. And from then on, I picked up the bass, and that's all I wanted to listen to for many years.
What was the first live jazz show you witnessed that really blew you away?
Let me think. The first show that I remember seeing in Athens, the great Archie Shepp, tenor sax player. He came to play in Athens. And also I remember Wynton Marsalis's septet. I was still in middle school, I think, and I went with an uncle that took me there. He said, you should listen to this. And I was blown away, from this new thing for me back then.
So how did the show start? How did your career take off? Was the stage always been a natural place? How did all of it kind of transpire to now?
It's been a gradual thing, I can say, because from my beginnings, I was playing, of course, in Athens. There wasn't much jazz, unfortunately, but back then, so would play with some rock groups and all that. So at least I got the feeling of playing on stage. And then as soon as I go to the States, I started working with groups, and eventually I realized that this is what I truly love in music, to perform more than anything else. That interaction, that live interaction in real time.
So in this process of playing live, recording music, promoting, educating, all these things that go into you, what do you like the best about being a professional musician?
That's a good question, because besides the music that we all love and we love doing, for sure traveling. And again, this is something that we were deprived of for a couple of years almost. But traveling, going to learn new cultures, visit new places, this really, and meeting people from all over the world. Wherever you go, you have such a nice treatment from locals, and you get to meet local cultures. And in my case, a lot of times going to distant places and playing with local musicians that come from totally different musical cultures. I think that's something that I really, really cherish.
Let's say you come to Kansas City and you're going to put on a live show. You're at one of our premier venues and you have to kind of sell it to people locally. How would you explain a live performance that you would put on, especially in the context of this album? How would you convince people in Kansas City to come see you live?
I know, of course, first of all, that Kansas City is one of the great, how can I say, the great mothers of jazz. You have some of the greatest jazz musicians coming from there. So, first of all, I am sure that there is a great and understanding jazz audience there. This I have no doubt about. I would tell people that, listen, this is our proposition. It is jazz and the piano trio that's on the core still of what we do. But I would just propose people this new melodic approach that we have, that's coming from maybe different cultures that are maybe people are not so familiar with. But just like I had my ears open and I accepted all these different influences and new sounds for me. For example, when I first heard Charlie Parker, I would tell the people to try to listen with open ears and see what they can get from our melodic concept. Because rhythmically, I think that it's pretty familiar what we do. It's part of modern jazz. It's part of Latin jazz, maybe as well. All this syncopation.
So, at the end of the day, what is it that you love the best about jazz? Why do you love jazz?
As I said, what I truly, truly love about jazz is interaction, because you are forced to be in real time with other musicians. You have to act and to react. You have to be open. You have to be democratic with the rest of the musicians. You have to be patient. So what I truly, truly love is that process of first time playing with somebody and getting a feel of how they do things and try to create something on the spot. I think this is something that jazz music has taught me, on that level at least.
So if anyone wants to pick up the new album, see live shows, are there any live shows coming up? I'm curious too. What's the scene like in Greece where you're at?
Now, basically, the last scenes, it's been 3 weeks now that I just moved actually to Paris, France. And we arranged a concert here to present the album, and soon after I will be trying to put together a small tour for next year for the group, or a larger tour maybe, hopefully. And of course it's my long-term plans to come to the States as well with this group, and it will be a joy, really. It would be a joy to come to Kansas as well.
We would absolutely love to see you here. Thank you so much for reaching out to the show. And before we get out of the door here, where is the best place for anyone to pick up this brand new album, past presented, learn more about live shows, anything that you've done in your life, your work, where can they go?
Basically, the album can be found online. It will be out. It's out on the 3rd of November, which is this Friday. Also, it can be found on Bandcamp. Basically, it's findable in all the digital outlets, as well as my previous music as well. But now we are really, really excited for this new album and to see the reaction of the listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir, so much for your time today. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with the album and everything else as it unfolds.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, it's been a joy.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Paris, Greece, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Apostolos for his time, story, and cool. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.